Good morning, my pals. Today we're kicking things off in Najaf, one of the holiest cities in the whole world. And so I have deposited my bag, I've deposited my boots and got a couple of tokens. In we go. We're on our way into the Imam Ali Shrine, which is what makes this city so important for the Shia Muslims of the world. Alright, well, have a look at this. I don't know what ceremony is about to take place, but it looks pretty important. This has to be absolutely the shiniest place I've ever been. Even the non-shiny bits, the bits like these marble pillars, are just absolutely extraordinary. Look at this whole place, it's mad. So just for some context, all this shininess is dedicated to Imam Ali. It's the Imam Ali Shrine. Ali was the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad and also the first Imam of Islam, the first preacher, and so he is regarded as the second most important person in all of Islam. And I've got to say, not only is it a very significant site religiously, but it is one of the most incredible buildings I've ever seen. Sensational. Even the chandeliers, look at the emerald chandeliers. The doors as well, so it seems traditional for people to kiss the doors on their way in, and even they are just the most intricately designed doors in the universe. It just keeps going on forever, it's massive. And then through this bit we have the, well, it looks like the chill out zone, the nap area. Boss man's even rolled himself up in a carpet. And we're back out. What a sensational place. It is regarded as the fourth most important, holiest site in Islam after Mecca, Medina, both in Saudi Arabia, and Al-Aqsa Mosque in Palestine. This is number 4 and it receives 20 million pilgrims a year. It's also where the traditional start of the pilgrimage, El-Hajj, that goes to Mecca. Traditionally, this is where it starts for people coming from Iran. So they go from here to Mecca. So for the Shia Muslims of the world, he is the first Imam. And for the Sunnis, he is the 4th Caliph, I believe. So he's important in both sides of Islam. It is also the Shiite belief, the belief of the Shia Muslims, that in there is not only buried Imam Ali, cousin of Prophet Muhammad, but also the remains of Adam and Nuh, or in biblical terms for Christians, Adam and Noah. Chaos, absolute chaos, some of these roads. So to reinforce how importantly Najaf is looked upon by the Shia Muslims of the world, we have arrived now at the world's largest cemetery. This is Wadi alSalam, or Valley of Peace. It is 1,500 acres and holds officially 6 million people, although how many there actually are, with people just kind of fitting people in where they can, no one actually knows. But 1,500 acres, the biggest one in the whole world. Some people claim there's up to 100 million bodies buried in and around here. Obviously it's difficult to really count, and it's also really difficult for me to show what 1,500 acres worth of graves actually looks like. So here's a photo or two that I found on the internet to display the size, and that is just Wadi alSalam. That's not Najaf as a whole, that's just this one graveyard, 1,500 acres, and 6 or more, probably a lot more, million people buried. That's how big it is. And I know it's hard to kind of see, but on the drive here in the taxi, also just drove past loads and loads of other graves just scattered around the city. So the total number of people buried in Najaf, no one really knows, but it's millions and millions and millions. As you can see, they're all kind of squeezed in wherever they can find enough space. Quite a few simple ones like these. There's a few in that kind of shape. And you can see, you know, there's some in those metal, I guess like mausoleum type things. Some tall ones so they can actually see who it is they're looking for. Yeah, there's quite a range going on, but pretty much wherever you fit, you squeeze in. The reason everyone is so keen to be buried here, I tried so hard to avoid saying dying to be buried here. I know that sounds insensitive, but you know, it's actually really important for people because of a couple of things. So firstly, Abraham is said to have had some land at Wadi alSalam, which Ali, the guy buried in the shrine we visited earlier, cousin of Prophet Muhammad and the commander of the believers, declared it a piece of heaven on earth. It's also believed that Ali has the power to intercede, get involved with people passing from this world to the afterlife, and therefore can help guarantee a place in heaven. And then the fact that Ali himself is buried not far from here kind of all together indicate that if you are buried here, you are guaranteed a positive passage to the afterlife and acceptance into heaven. And so yeah, overall a very, very symbolic place and vital for Shia Muslims to be buried here. The ritual is that the deceased is carried around the shrine 3 times, and earlier actually did see someone being carried out of the shrine in a coffin, so that explains that one. And then they come here and they're interred while listening to some Quranic verses, which is what this guy who's about to, there he is, it's what this chap's doing. And just to clarify, that's not just for Iraqi Shia Muslims, this is for Muslims all around the world, and that is why with improved transportation to get the deceased from where they are from to this specific grave is making it kind of overflow into the city, and that's why we have no idea how many people are actually buried here in total. But there's a good few, and I can confirm it is pretty endless. So there you go, the biggest cemetery in the whole world. The best acquisition of the trip so far, chaps. It's officially 1 million degrees in Najaf, and so we've got an ice cream and it tastes like a flump, so it's divine, absolutely divine. This golden domed bad boy that we're approaching now is the Kufa Great Mosque, and further piles on the religious significance of Najaf and the surrounding areas. I'll explain why when we get inside. Alright, so once again, the shoes have been deposited and we are in the Great Mosque of Kufa. Not only is it massive, stunning and in impeccable nick, but it's also one of the oldest mosques in the world. It was built in about 670 AD. So knowing that Islam was never a thing before 636, 635-ish AD, it's only about 30 years after the creation of Islam. It's an incredibly early mosque. So that's one reason why it is such an important landmark. Another reason is that Ali, the first Imam of the Shia Muslims, the guys whom we visited earlier, this is where he was fatally stabbed with a poisoned sword while praying, and this is where he died. If we go in here, we can see another one of the reasons, a few more of these shrines to other prophets, other teachers of Islam, etc. from early on, and so the shininess well and truly continues. It's also believed to be the dwelling place of Nuh or Noah for Christians, and it's the place where the water started rising from for the floods, and where the last bit of water was reabsorbed into to end the flood. This is also where the Shias believe the 12th Imam is going to come and rule the world from, and this is where he will be until the end of time. So for Christians, that's a little bit like the second coming of Christ. This is where they think the 12th Imam is going to rule the world from. And because of all that holiness, it is within Shia tradition to believe that if you perform one prayer here, it is the same as performing 1,000 prayers anywhere else. So it's a powerful little spot, and yeah, it's quite a beautiful one. It is now, by the way, blisteringly hot, so I'm going to do as the Iraqis are doing and go and find some shade. You can't deny it is a wonderfully crafted thing. The windows, the pillars, the carpets. It's a big old job, this. They do have quite a bizarre no camera rule in mosques, which I would understand, by the way, if that meant no pictures or videos, but it doesn't, because the locals, the pilgrims, everyone is taking pictures and everything in here as well. So take the camera off you, put that in a locker somewhere, obviously just walk around with a smartphone and do the same thing, which everyone has, so not really sure about that one. It really is quite a wonderful bit of work, this. Where do you begin with a place so massive and yet so intricately detailed in the smallest places? Where do you even start? Another interesting one is that everyone seems to think I'm Iranian. When I go through checkpoints or anything, the first question they ask is if I'm from Iran. I'm not sure they're getting too many Englishmen kicking about nowadays. And so that is about that for a morning mooch around Najaf and its religious significance. There are a couple of more sites, but today you've seen the most important ones. But yeah, it is officially sweltering. It is not a good temperature to be meandering around in, especially not for a pale English bloke, so I'm going to retire. Hopefully you've learned something and it's been insightful. You've looked around Najaf from the comfort and the coolness of your own homes. We'll go again in the next one, chaps. In a bit.